Okay, the first thing you want to do is make sure your guitar is all tuned up. Tuning is extremely important to having a great guitar tone. Second step is to head into your noise gate. You can match my settings, or you want to mess with the threshold so the guitar noise in between when you play notes is going to be cut off. So you won't really hear that noise in between guitar notes, which is really important for Djent. So adjust your threshold so you can hear it cutting off how you like and you don't hear noise in between your notes. As for the decay, that's the speed that the gate's going to work, so for Djent you pretty much want that as fast as possible. Now the next thing I do is you want to send your overdrive and your distortion into the send return loop of your noise gate if that's possible, because those are very noisy pedals and this lets the noise gate work with those signals and cancel out the noise very cleanly before sending your signal onto your other pedals like your delay and such. You can see that I have, it goes from the noise suppressor send to the Ibanez tube screamer and then to the Metalcore, and then I actually have it going to a couple effects pedals in that loop, and then it comes back to the return of the noise suppressor. For your Djent tone, you just need overdrive and distortion. Okay, next is the tube screamer. You want to use like an overdrive pedal if you don't have the tube screamer or like a digital copy of it. Keep the drive pretty low. This is important for metal. This keeps it clean, especially when you have dual-tracked guitars. Set the tone to your liking. For Djent, I usually like kind of a sharper tone. It needs a little bit more attitude to the guitar tone. And the level, I try to keep everything around negative 18 decibels coming into my interface. You want to kind of set the guitar pedal level so that it's coming in at a good, manageable volume into your gear. So that's up to you where you set that. Usually around medium is probably ideal. Okay, after the tube screamer, we go into the distortion, or I'm using the Boss Metalcore. Same thing, the levels, just set the level to about the volume that you need to have it at. That's kind of irrelevant, just like a medium is good. The low, this is how I have mine set for a Djent tone. You want a good amount of bass, but a little bit of crispness too, and really not too much distortion. It's really even, like the tone by itself should sound a little drier than what you would want, because when you put it in context of a full mix, it will sound really good and clean, and it won't sound dry. Okay, after the Metalcore pedal, we go into the return of the noise gate. From that point, I go DI, so I go direct into my interface. And from this point, you'll want to pick a amp sim, like an amp head sim. I use Pod Farm, it's just what I've always used, and it sounds really good, and I have good settings for it that I like. And I have a couple, like I have the Metal Shop expansion that has some good stuff, so I always use Pod Farm, but you can use whatever kind of amp head sim program you like. I know there's a lot of good ones out there. I'm using the Diamond Plate in Pod Farm 2, and that is a replicant of the Mesa Boogie amps. So that can kind of help you pick what kind of amp sound I picked for this Djent tone is those Mesa Boogie caps. So I'm only using the amp head from this program, just the Mesa Boogie head. Then we go over to my reverb, and this is where I'm doing the impulse response, which is like emulating recording of a guitar cab. You can definitely just use the cab of your program, or if you have a dedicated impulse response reverb program to do that with. A lot of reverbs will have impulse response loaders. So if you know what that is, you'll know, or you can just look up about it, and it's pretty easy to figure out. But I use some Joey Sturgis Impulse responses, and it's emulating 4x30 Mesa Boogie cab. And I'm using a SM7B mic on Axis, so that's the sound of a recorded cab that it's giving me. After that, now that I have the amp sound and the cab sound, I'm just doing like the mic going into the preamp, so I just do a preamp. And just did a little bit of EQ just to kind of make it sound how I want. With Djent tones, you really want to pay attention to the mid, like the middle knobs, and really make that sound cool. You can boost the mids a lot to really give it a Djenty sound, sometimes a good cut. It kind of depends on your guitar, but play around with it and feel free to copy these settings, and that should get you in a pretty good spot for sounding good. Okay, that's all the steps. I'll leave the guitar chain in the description below, so you can see for yourself what kind of the chain is, and you can kind of adapt this to your own, your own sound and your own setup. Especially if you don't have these pedals, or if you want to use your own pedals, there's lots of different ways. But this is as far as like how to set your drive and your EQs perhaps, and like the gains of stuff. This is going to get you a really good Djent sound. And using those Mesa Boogie cabs is a really good amp too. I really like that sound for Djent. Let me show you what the guitar tone sounds like with no mixing or mastering on it, so you can get an idea of what this will sound like. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I'd love to talk about Djent tone in the comments, so if you want to ask a question or have any questions about what I did, feel free to drop a comment and we'll talk about it. So, thank you very much. Peace.